Collins Cobras, this is Mrs. Hernandez, and today I'm going to be walking you through some test-taking strategies. Our first strategy says, read through the entire problem, including the answer choices. So our question says, Jamal wrote the inequality x divided by 16 is less than or equal to 6. Which situation is best represented by this inequality? Answer choice A, and as I read through all of the answer choices, like the strategy says, I'm going to be breaking them down into mathematical symbols. Jamal divided X pieces of paper among 16 students, and each student received fewer than 6 pieces of paper. So he divided X pieces of paper among 16 students, and each student received fewer, which would be less than, 6 pieces of paper. Answer choice B says Jamal placed X cards in 16 stacks and there were no more than 6 cards in each stack. So X cards placed into 16 stacks, and then no more than is going to be equal to 6, because it can be 6 or it can be less than 6. So we'll use our less than or equal to symbol. Answer choice C, Jamal separated X shirts into 6 stacks and each stack had at least 16 shirts. So X shirts separated into 6 stacks, and then at least 16 is going to be equal to 16 or greater than 16. So we'll use our greater than or equal to symbol. And finally, Jamal shared 16 markers with X classmates, and each classmate had fewer than 6 markers. So 16 markers shared between X classmates, and then fewer than would be less than 6. So we can see that the answer choice that's going to match our original inequality here is answer choice B. Our second strategy says, ask yourself, what is the question really asking me? Because sometimes we read too quickly and we think the question is asking us something different than it really is. So which of the following is not a possible answer for the variable in the inequality shown below? The first mistake that people get tempted to make is they want to find something that's greater than or equal to 19 right away and then think that they're done. But we have to remember that when we are looking for a possible answer or a possible solution for an inequality, it has to be an inequality that's been solved. So our first step is going to be solving this inequality by isolating the variable. Because it says x minus -3, we're subtracting a negative. Before we can isolate the variable using inverse operations, we actually are going to need to change to addition using keep, change, opposite. So we'll keep x, change from subtraction to addition, and use the opposite of -3, which is 3. Now we're ready to isolate the variable using the inverse of addition, which is subtraction. These will cancel out, which isolates the variable. And then anytime we make a change to the left side of the inequality, we have to make the same change to the other side. So we're going to get a solution of x is greater than or equal to 16. The next thing people get tempted to do is they see 16 and 16 and they want to say that that's the answer, but the question is really asking which one is not a possible answer. So x can be anything that is greater than or equal to 16, but we want the one that will not work. The only answer choice that's not greater than or equal to 16 is 15. Our third test-taking strategy says, read the problem again. Look for key words that will help you understand the question and the answer choices. We can underline important details. We can circle information that's important. We can even use a highlighter. Spencer took $21 with him to the mall. At the music store, he spent 2/3 of his money on a DVD. How much money did Spencer have left after he bought the DVD? So now I'm going to reread, and this time make sure to identify important information. Spencer took $21 with him to the mall. This is important because when it says he took $21 with him to the mall, that tells me that that's the total amount of money that he had to spend. At the music store, he spent 2/3 of his money on a DVD. So he spent part of his money on a DVD. I know that it's part of his money because 2/3 is less than 1. How much money did Spencer have left after he bought the DVD? This I'm going to circle because that's what the question's really asking me for. Okay, so back when we studied multiplying and dividing fractions, we said that anytime you're taking part of something, you're going to multiply. So we're going to take our total and multiply by the part that he spent on the DVD. I'm going to use 1 as the denominator for our whole number. And then to multiply fractions, we multiply straight across, numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So we're going to get 42 over 3. This is also a great time to remember our cross-canceling strategy, because I can see that 42 over 3 needs to be simplified, but for those of us that like to cross-cancel, we can get a simplified answer using that strategy. 3 and 21, these two terms that are diagonal from each other, are both multiples of 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 21 divided by 3 is 7. So then 7 times 2 is 14, and 1 times 1 is 1. If you don't like cross-canceling, you can simply simplify 42 over 3 and you'll get the same answer. And then 14 over 1 is $14. Now I have to go back into the problem, and it says that he spent 2/3 of his money. This is 2/3 of his money, but that's the part he spent on the DVD. So the DVD cost $14. But what the question is really asking is how much money he had left after he bought the DVD. So now we want to take the total. The total, which was $21, and subtract the cost of the DVD, which was $14, and the money he had left was $7. Our next test-taking strategy says, analyze the answer choices and eliminate as many as you can. Which inequality could the number line below be representing? So I'm looking at this graph, and I notice that it has an open or unshaded circle on -3. So I'm able to eliminate 2 of the answer choices right away, just by looking at that unshaded circle, because I know that when we make a graph of less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, we would use a closed circle. So it cannot be answer choice B or D. The arrow points to the right, which is greater than, so that leaves us with A or C. Now I have to remember that before we can graph an inequality, it has to be solved. So a lot of people get tempted to see, oh, that's -3, there's -3, I'm going to choose that as my answer and be done. But we actually need to go in and solve these inequalities. So we want to isolate the variable using inverse operations. The inverse of adding 5 is subtracting 5. So those will cancel. And then we need to make the same change to the other side. Because we're subtracting from a negative, we need to change to addition using keep change opposite. We're going to keep -3, change from subtraction to addition, and use the opposite of 5, which is -5. Now that we've changed to addition, I can see that we're adding together two integers that are both negative, so I can just add them together and keep the sign the same. So we get a solution of b is greater than -8. For answer choice C, our inequality says b minus -6 is greater than 3. We're subtracting a negative again, so we need to change to addition using keep, change, opposite. So we'll keep the variable, change from subtraction to addition, and use the opposite of -6, which is 6. Now we want to isolate the variable using the inverse of addition, which is subtraction. Those will cancel, and then I'll make the same change on the other side. We cannot subtract 6 from 3, so we'll use keep, change, opposite again. We'll keep 3, change from subtraction to addition, and use the opposite of 6, which is -6. Now we're adding together two integers with signs that are different. When the signs are different, we need to find the difference. That's the strategy I like to use to remember that rule, because finding the difference means subtracting. So we'll subtract them and then use the sign from the integer with a greater absolute value, which in this case is our negative integer. So we're going to get -3. Now that we've isolated the variables and we have solutions, we can see which one matches the graph, and b is greater than -3. We've got greater than -3. So our answer choice C is correct. Strategy number 5 says, go back and review the original question. Does your answer choice make sense? Is your answer reasonable? That's a very good strategy to use. This also relates to strategy number 2, making sure that you understand what the question is really asking you and that that's the answer you came up with. So in 3 3/4 hours one day in January, it snowed 3 feet in Amarillo. How much snow fell per hour? So our first job in this question is deciding if we should divide or if we should multiply. A strategy I like to use to help me decide which operation to use is if I already know the total or if I'm trying to find the total. When it says it snowed 3 feet, that's the total amount of snow that fell. So we already know the total. That's going to tell us to divide. The next step is deciding what should be our dividend and what should be our divisor. A lot of people get tempted to use the numbers in the same order that they are in the question. So because the dividend comes first and this is the first number in the problem, people get tempted to think that that must be the dividend and that the second number is the divisor. But if we think about what the question is really asking and if this makes sense, the dividend that we picked, 3 3/4, represents hours. And 3 represents the amount of snow. So we're saying that we're dividing hours into snow. That does not make sense. The thing that's getting split up into intervals of per hour is the snow. We want to divide the snow up into how much snow fell per hour. So stopping to figure out if what we did makes sense tells us that the dividend should actually be 3 and the divisor should actually be 3 3/4. So now we're ready to set this up. We want to use 1 as our denominator for 3, and we want to change our mixed number into an improper fraction. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15. Okay, next we're ready to solve, and we know that dividing by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal, and we use keep, change, flip to set that up. So we'll keep 3 over 1, we'll change from division to multiplication, and we'll find the reciprocal of 15 over 4, which is 4 over 15. Now we can multiply straight across, so 3 times 4 is 12, and 1 times 15 is 15. Or we could use cross-canceling again, because these two terms that are diagonal from each other, 3 and 15, are both multiples of 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So 1 times 4 is 4, and 1 times 5 is 5. If you did not cross-cancel, you would simply simplify 12 over 15 and you would get the same answer. And then our last test-taking strategy says, cover the answer choices and answer the question first. This question says, which image shows the problem 6 minus negative 9? A lot of people see 6 and negative 9 and get tempted to pick this as their answer right away. But we're going to practice covering the answer choices and solving using our mathematical strategies first and then finding an answer choice after. So we want to simplify the expression 6 minus negative 9. Because we're subtracting from a negative, we're going to use keep, change, opposite to change it to addition. So we're going to keep 6, change from subtraction to addition, and use the opposite of negative 9, which is 9. We can simplify that to 15. Because they're both positive, we can just add them together. So now we're ready to find the answer choice. So we need a group of 6 and a group of 9. So here's 6 and here's 9 and a total of 15. So that makes C the correct answer. I hope you find these test-taking strategies useful, and good luck on STAR.